call, excuse me. I'd like to call the November meeting of the Rockland Community College Board of Trustees to order. Madam Secretary, we call the roll.
Mr. Wardenbeck.
Here.
Mr. Rand. Ms. Dillon is here. Mr. Valentine.
Here.
Ms. Dykstra Janellen. Ms. Eckert. Here. Ms. Hillowitz. Here. Ms. Ramos. Here. Mr. Taub. Excused. Mr. Frias. Okay, well, we can do
Thank you. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to officially welcome our newest trustee, Lynn Hillowitz. On November 7th, she was unanimously appointed to the Rockland Community College Board of Trustees by the Rockland County Legislature to replace Richard Boyd's unexpired term. Her term will last until June 20th, 2020. Lynn Hillowitz has been practicing law in New York since 1981 and is a graduate of the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law of Yeshiva University. She is also admitted to practice in New Jersey and Florida. Her focus is estate planning and estate taxation, probate, and litigation regarding trust and estate matters. Ms. Hillowitz is a former president of the Rockland County Bar Association and continues to serve as chair of the Circuit Court and Estate Planning Committee. She is past president of the Estate Planning Council of Rockland County Incorporated and currently serves on its board of directors. We are honored to welcome Lynn and look forward to working with her. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wardenbeck.
I'd also like to recognize the reappointment of two of our trustees, Mary Ellen Dykstra Janellen and Ileana Eckert, to the board, to their board terms, which will be ending June 30th, 2023. Congratulations. Is there any public comment at this time? None? Thank you. Our presentation tonight is by Ms. Eileen McAvery-Kane, Chair of the Rockland Community College Art Department, with her Fulbright Scholarship experience.
Yes, I do have some slides to show you, so if you want to, so you can see them.
Yes, I remember this over here just so that it's up here present.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction, and thanks for the invitation. When I was asked if I wanted to speak about my Fulbright experience, absolutely. I love talking about Fulbright. Whenever anybody asks me, things at home, they can't shut me up about it. Yes, I was lucky enough. In fact, my challenge is going to be to keep it short, right? So my experience was a full month in Poland. I applied for and received a Fulbright Hayes Fulbright to explore contemporary U.S.-Poland relations. And I was there pretty much for the month of July. And it started off with a pre-departure orientation in Washington, and there were 16 of us that were selected from across the U.S., all different disciplines. I was the only person in the art field, geographers, geologists, different humanities, teacher education, many disciplines. And we flew to Warsaw from Washington. And I'm going to take you through this fairly quickly. But we went to Warsaw and we got to see the style in Gothic and the different architecture. Every city that we went to, we were in Warsaw for about a week, so most cities were about a week, some a little less, some a little more. And we got to visit universities, business centers, Chamber of Commerce, art museums, Copernicus Science Center, all kinds of things. This was the Warsaw Ghetto, what's left of it. The image on the right shows the changes that Poland has undergone. The street sign on the top was from the era when they were part of Russia. Then the one below it was during the interwar period. The one below there when they were part of communist, the Eastern Bloc, and the bottom one is current day. So in this 100-year span, they had all these different nations that they were with. And we got to go to the Polish ambassador's residence. As I mentioned, art galleries, ethnography museum. Let me just go back. One of the things that impressed me, everywhere we went, you would see the pathos of what they went through with the Holocaust. This is from the art museum. So my area of study, which I'll get into a little bit further at the end, was Polish poster design. So as people would say to me, as I told them I got this Fulbright, Poland, why Poland? Poland and poster design in the graphic design field, it's the best. When I told graphic designers I was going to Poland, they were all like, oh, you're going to go to Poland. Other people would say, why Poland? Well, poster design is to Poland as sushi is to Japan. So this was my side trip. The other people didn't go on this one, but I got to go to Villanelle to the museum dedicated to poster design. And we spent a day in Łódź, which is the film center. They like to say of Europe. And some street art. And from Łódź we went for a day, then we went back to Warsaw and we went to Gdansk. Gdansk has a heavily Scandinavian influence because it's on the Baltic. Very beautiful city. We went to Gdynia, which is their innovation center and business center right outside of Gdansk. Solidarity Museum, Immigration Museum, World War II Museum. We went to castles. From Gdansk, we went down to Poznan, and Poznan has a heavy German influence. They've completely rebuilt their city center, but you can see the architecture, they restored it. This was a palace, Rogaland Palace. This remained intact, the interior was gorgeous. It actually was the headquarters for the Hitler Youth. This was another castle, Cornick Castle, another castle, Cassius Castle. This was one that was up in the mountains, a medieval castle, and this was where Hitler was going to have his headquarters. And we saw like underground tunnels that had been built. Very striking. We went from Poznan to Wrocław, and in Wrocław we visited again. You can see the historic areas. The gnomes were part of a resistance movement in Wrocław, and you can see them throughout the city. And we got to visit the studio where they made Loving Vincent. I don't know if any of you have seen that movie, the animated film. Won a lot of awards. I was thrilled with that. Met with all kinds of, that was a newspaper meeting we had, 3M Innovation Center. This was a Supreme Court protest that we saw while we were there. Then we went to Krakow. And Krakow is the city in Poland that remains, it has the most architecture that wasn't destroyed by bombing. And it was quite beautiful. They have a Jewish quarter that we visited. And you can see some of the original buildings remained intact. Another innovation center. We went to Auschwitz-Birkenau while we were there. A very emotional, moving experience. Just a few pictures from there. And after Krakow, we went back to Warsaw for about an hour, and then we went up to Łódź, I'm probably not pronouncing it well, but to a palace. And this was a retreat for us so we were there, we had a lot of fun, we saw a lot, but we were there to do a curriculum project. And my area was poster design, and while we were here at the retreat center, we presented our curriculum projects and planned, kind of gathered our thoughts, what we were going to bring back home. And the project that I had presented to get the Fulbright had to do with teaching the history of graphic design through the lens of Polish poster design. And it would culminate in a project with students where they would learn about this history of Polish poster design, other aspects of graphic design, and then do a project that involved social justice warrior. And that's what I did. And actually the students are kind of nearing the end of their project. So what I did is I taught them about the history of poster design, and I just thought I'd show you a little of this. This is the Paris influence. So throughout the world, or Western world, and some Eastern too, poster design really became famous at the end of the 1800s with the invention of lithography. And this is the French poster design. Posters were collected the way postage stamps were, other things of value, and traded. And people collected them like they would collect gold. And then you can see they really became prolific all over the landscape. This is New York. And at that point, Poland was just like the rest of the world, and they were always known for their high artistry of poster design, and it was used, posters started for commerce with the Industrial Revolution, so a lot of it was advertising. And during the interwar period, their poster design really, they had a lot of tourism involved in it. And then, of course, during the World Wars, posters were used for propaganda. And in the 1940s and 50s, poster design in the West kind of declined. As advertisers went to television and other forms of advertising, posters kind of became a lower art in the West. But in the Eastern Bloc, posters were still considered a high art. They became this gray zone between capitalism and communism. And some of the reasons for this is because the artists in Poland during the communist era, they had no way to make a living. So the money from the government went to poster design for propaganda as well as films. So you had this kind of talent pool that you had nowhere else of artists that did poster design. Then they couldn't do outright protest against the government. So they used their skills to kind of subversively rebel against the government, and they used symbolism, visual metaphor, and they would get their posters past the censors. So they would get films from the West, but they weren't allowed to get the assets. And they would create, so the one on the left is a Polish poster design, the one on the right is one from the United States or from the West. And when I teach this with my students, it's about the use of symbolism, visual metaphor, as well as creating from your own internal experience, not relying on other resources. There's many things that we can point to for this. Here's another example of it. Yeah, the one on the right is the from the U.S. The one on the left was the Polish poster. If you come to my office, I actually bought that one at the museum and have it huge and framed. So if you come visit me, you'll see that. So the workflow for the project. Students were asked to write a short summary paper on a topic that both the U.S. and Poland shares. And I gave them a list: environmental threats, the history of genocide, immigration, freedom of the press, and nationalism. And then they were asked to create two posters, one for the U.S., one for Poland. And through this process, could they be identical? How would they differ? And we also had a Skype interview with an internationally renowned Polish poster designer who talked to the students about poster design, what she does, and they also asked her a lot of questions about their issues. And then the last part, how does it work with Zeitgeist? How do we do it in our contemporary times? And they're still working on that. They're working on an app based on their poster, an app design. And I just have a few student samples to show you. So this is environmental, the one on the left, US, the one on the right, Polish. Another environmental. This was freedom of the press, the one on the left, US, the one on the right, Polish, and the final one. And I asked them really to use that visual metaphor. Can they get their message across without even using words? And that's pretty much it. I think I did it in 10 minutes, and I did it well. So thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to talk about it.
Thank you.
If anybody ever wants to talk further, just find me. I'm happy to. Way more pictures too. Have a great night. Thank you.
Who is this? Krista. I bet you would have liked it. Krista.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have 6 items this evening. I will read them. First is the approval of the previous meeting minutes dated 11/1/2018. Number 2, approving the president's appointment of a vice president of operations and strategic initiatives. That's resolution 49/2018. Number 3, approval of the creation of the position of executive director of operations and chief law enforcement officer. That's resolution 50/2018. Number 4, the approval of the creation of the position of executive director of strategic initiatives. Resolution 51/2018. Number 5 is the approval of the CAC green roof replacement. Resolution 52/2018. And number 6, the approval of a revised email policy, Resolution 53/2018. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the consent agenda.
Okay. Second? Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, academic affairs report given by Dr. Michael Baskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just highlight that in the work that we're doing with open educational resources, we have seen that more than 3,500 students have saved nearly $364,000 by faculty integrating open educational resources as a method versus using textbooks. We hope that more students will continue to benefit from this kind of support. With respect to the work that Ms. Eileen McCabe-Kane did, I'm happy to note that her class is one that designs our holiday cards, and they do a great job. So we're appreciative of the great work that you saw tonight and the work that happens with the students. That's the report from academic affairs.
Can I just piggyback, because you mentioned Professor, I'm sorry she left right away. I'm so proud of the fact that we got a Fulbright fellowship here. I don't know what her pool of applicants were. These are highly competitive. They're highly competitive. And the fact that we got a professor who won one, that's just great. That's really great. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, student services report will be by Dr. Michael Bastin again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just highlight that in the course of this semester, we've had many student activities that have been on campus. One highlighted activity was a recent student government Thanksgiving dinner that they provided, and a lot of other activities that have happened that have been very, very important for students, as well as the work that is happening with guiding pathways. We know that committees have now been established to really look more deeply into how we organize our programs and services to support students. So we just reported this time that that work is well underway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, finance. Interim Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Joseph Mara.
Good evening. So in front of you, you have 2 months of the Statement of Operations ending October 31st, 2018. So the big thing is that our fall tuition still is at $11,655,000 versus our budget of $11,672. So we're just shy of our budget of by only $35,000, which translates into 0.3%. And as usual, we are continuing monitoring our expenses, even though it's still early in the year. This past Tuesday, our auditors met with our audit committee and talked about the audit plan. So I have copies if anybody wants to read the audit plan. They will be here on Monday, and the field work will last approximately 2 weeks. And they'll go back to their office and we'll continue the process. And we anticipate the report to be done by the end of January. There's a few things that we have to wait for the New York State pension system before we can wrap it up. And that won't be ready until mid to late December. Any questions?
No questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Mara. Operations, Dr. Beth Coyle.
Thank you. You all have a copy of my report, but there are a couple of items that I'd like to highlight for you. The first is that on November 4th, we had over 5,000 rabbis and their colleagues from over 100 countries visiting us here at the college. And the event generated almost $30,000 for the college, but more importantly, the college had so much exposure and so many very important guests from all over the world here at Rockland Community College, so it's very nice. And the facility looked beautiful, by the way, and it didn't rain. Also, we talked a little bit in the past about the Google IT professional grant. We did receive a grant, and that is going to become folded into the Middle Skills Academy. You all have packets of handouts for those courses that will be offered through the Middle Skills Academy. IT support professional, 3D drafter, undercar specialist, and social media marketing and branding for entrepreneurs. You'll get another set of handouts as well as the electronic version, just with some minor adjustments that have been happening since we've met earlier in the workshop. Also, we would love it if you all would pass the word and help us get the word out regarding those middle skills, because they'll be starting on January 2nd. And finally, I am excited and relieved to report that the elevator is in, has arrived, I should say. It's not installed yet for the Nyack Hospitality and Culinary Center. So we're well underway for a January opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, I think the board would like to commend you for getting the Middle Skills Academy going way before it was scheduled to go.
Thank you.
January 1st is really a great thing.
That's, I have to pass all the credit to Dr. Penny Jennings for making that happen. She's Don Motion's, she's the person who's responsible for that.
Thank you.
Executed?
Yeah, she's executioner.
I don't believe we have a report from Institutional Advancement or the Foundation this evening, but I think Dr. Bass would like to welcome a new member.
It is truly a pleasure and an honor to welcome the new Vice President of Institutional Advancement and the new Executive Director of the Rockland Community College Foundation, and that is Susan Lyden.
I'm so honored to be here and grateful. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Board Secretary report.
Actually, nothing as the board secretary, so I'll wait till we get down to old business.
Raphael, do you have anything? Student government? Okay, thank you. All right, old or new business? Mary Lou?
We are in the process, hopefully, of putting together a constituency group to go to Albany in March for lobbying for the school. And we're looking to encourage all of the constituent groups, ideally, obviously, students, we hope, faculty members, administrators of college staff, foundation members, and community members. And my understanding is that Ben is our point person on this. And the more evidence that we bring to Albany that we are a very excited group of people who feel very strongly about this school, the more attention obviously we can get. So it should be a nice sized group that goes.
What is that date again?
We don't have a group. Unless I'm, Ben.
All right, is there any additional old or new business? If not, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.